everybody. This is Keith Gleason, host of Indie Comics Relay, creator of the Mighty Mascots, and promoter for the Plastic City Comic Con. And I'm here with another 5 questions with an indie creator segment. Before I get into that, reminder that Mighty Mascots number 10 anniversary issue still in demand, still open. We are fulfilling right now. I hope to be done in the next week or two. I'm just getting boxes for the bigger shipments, like the action figures and stuff like that. So once those are out the door, this thing I'll probably keep it open for a while. So if you've been waiting for that tax refund or whatever, jump right in. Also want to remind people, Plastic City Comic-Con happening Saturday, August 23rd. We got a great lineup this year. We got Philip Kennedy Johnson, we got Dan Larson, Dick Terhune, bunch of wrestlers from TNA and WCW, Rick Parker, Larry Stroman, Keith Champagne. List goes on and on and on, all for $10, which you can't find a better convention anywhere for that price and with these great guests. So check that out. And one final thing, the pre-launch page for Kids Switch issues 1 and 2 is up on Kickstarter right now. I figured it's a new series. I'm going to try Kickstarter again. We're going to be reprinting number 1. It's going to be relettered and remastered, basically. And then we are finally proceeding with issue 2 after 10 plus years. I've been waiting to do it. And so check it out, man. This is going to be a good one. If it's like Ben 10 meets Sliders. So check that out. All right. On with our segment here. So we've been doing the 5 questions with indie creators for a while now. And so if you're out there, you're an indie creator, you got a project coming up or a comic you want to promote, hit me up and get your own video made. I've seen a lot of creators use these to great effect for their campaigns. Like once they have videos made, they can cut up the questions and use that as like material to promote their book without actually just being a spam ad. You have a little bit of content there. So yeah, no, it's really good stuff. So, but this week we have a creator, Ben Lacy, which I think Johnny is a friend of Johnny's, or Johnny knows him from conventions all over the United States. He has a book called Samson, and he's going to be producing issue 2. I pulled up the Kickstarter here, so let's take a look at this Kickstarter campaign. It's the Nazis were trying to make a super soldier. Instead, they created their greatest enemy. Good superhero stuff. He's got 15 days to go. Looks like he's about 70% of the way there, so he could use some help. So check this out. The video is really cool. It gives you a lot of images from the book itself. And the art looks good. I mean, this is a classic superhero stuff. Very what if Superman was created by Nazi soldiers? That's kind of the idea here. And the artwork is good. The other unique thing, they have some great homage covers here. This is like, I guess, the base cover, but they're going to be doing homages to all kinds of Superman issues in the campaign, Action Comics, and then here's a Samson one. Yeah, it looks good, man. And the best thing about this campaign, you can read issue number 1 for free. There's a link at the top here where you can read number 1, see if you like it, and then back number 2, or buy 1 and 2 again as a physical comic. And Ben Lacy, he's got a unique point of view on this one. He's a descendant of Ukrainian Jews. So he's also an engineer by day, a comic creator by night. So he's been wanting to tell this tale for a while. So you can always feel the passion there when a creator wants to tell a story that they're really involved in, things like that. So check it out. So if you are watching this video, I will have the link to the Kickstarter in the description below. All right, so let's go jump right into the question. So I came up with 5 questions for Ben. I took a look at both books. All right, here's the questions I came up with for Ben. Number 1, what is the central conflict driving Samson's story in both these issues? And how does his transformation into a superhuman affect his fight against the Nazis?
Yeah, well, so Samson is two parallel stories. It follows our young hero as a boy at Auschwitz, where he's going through his origin and getting his superpowers. And comes back 50 years later to look at him as an adult after the fall of the Berlin Wall, where new information has arisen about the facts of what happened to him as a boy, and that somebody is trying to start up this Nazi super soldier program again, with much more dramatic success. And that some of the people who he thought were dead in the war, some of the Nazis, may still be alive, and he's trying to hunt them down, including a super criminal known as the Uberfuhrer. So that is the basis of the story. Now, his superhuman powers, obviously, if he didn't have them, he would have certainly died in the concentration camp, as so many others did. Those powers are what allows him to survive, and of course, those powers are what enable him to later on we'll see him in action in World War II, and then in the more present time after the fall of the Berlin Wall, hunting down some of these Nazi super villains that he will be able to take out thanks to having those powers.
All right. Question number two. How does the comic portray the historical setting of Auschwitz? And what steps did you take to balance historical accuracy with your superhero story?
Um, so I did a lot of research into this, and there's some bonus features both in issue one and in the upcoming issue two, talking about the true story of this and how it informed this. Obviously, the two scientists who are experimenting them are based on real scientists, and like I said, there's a bonus at the end of the book where you actually get to see this. Read about them and find out what really happened to them in life and see pictures of the actual people. There's also a point where you'll see some of the real experiments done by the Nazis on people, that actually happened, and of course those were all fatal, or you know, killed people, or horribly tortured them. This is a superhero comic book, so in this case, our hero is going to have a different outcome. But the real outcome is definitely shown there. To be sensitive to it, I very much I don't try to show a lot of I show what happens, but I'm not showing torture porn.
All right. Good stuff. Number three. What specific superhuman abilities does Samson gain from the Nazi experiments, and how are they used to advance the plot or symbolize his resistance?
So I think if you want to think about his abilities, think early Superman, before he could fly, before he had heat vision, super breath, super ventriloquism, ice breath, and all those other superpowers. He's got, let's say, thing level strength. If you want to compare a comparable character, invulnerability, he can jump and run very fast. Kind of like Superman again in the early comic books before he picked up all those additional superpowers. He has, after 50 years of being a superhero and fighting in wars and things like that, he's has an incredibly high level of combat skills, hand-to-hand expertise, similar to what you would think of for Captain America. He has some special resistances that we'll see, including some to magic, and he has heightened reflexes. Not well greater than human, but we're not talking the Flash or something like that. And how does that symbolize? I think that strength of ability, is what makes him a super soldier for his country later on, and also makes him in this universe, where there are some superheroes, but it's not nearly as populated as Marvel or DC's universes. Um, Basically, the premier superhero of his world.
All right. Number four. How does your background as an engineer turned comic creator influence the storytelling or visual approach in Samson 1 and 2?
Yeah, so as an engineer, I have a very, logical kind of thought process. So I'm trying to really think about what's happening. I think you'll see a scene in issue one where I talk about how he doesn't want to start punching his opponent around because they'll wind up doing is knocking each other through buildings, and they're fighting in Chicago and they'll tear the city down. So he's very much thinking like an MMA fighter where he gets his guy on the ground and he's trying to do basically a ground and pound where that person is now feeling the full force of the blow. There's no getting knocked back and having that reduce the impact of the blow. It's much more visceral and violent in a way, but it's also much more effective for someone trying to fight the way he does. So things like that are influencing my approach to it a lot, where I'm really trying to use logic and kind of a reason for everything happening the way it does. And none of the science, of course, is in there, though I'm trying to think of a super soldier program that would make sense for a universe where something like that is possible.
All right, number 5. How does your comic depict the moment Samson gains his superhuman abilities, and what emotional or physical toll does the Nazi experimentation process take on him?
Yeah, you'll see that in issue two, how he gains his abilities, and you'll also see the very emotional and physical toll that happens, and especially going after that with his family. We're gonna meet some of his family members in issue two and see the toll that what was been done to him has happened to him. He's in a way, I make the point strongly in issue one that he's been very lucky, in terms of what's happened to him, that, luckier than any other, victim of the Holocaust. But he still suffered greatly and is a tragic figure in some ways. And we're going to see some of that and a lot of that in issue two. And it's cost him in emotional and physical ways in his relationships.
All right. And we always have a fun question after number 5. So this is, if you could team up Samson with any modern superhero to take on the Nazis in a wild alternate history crossover, who would you pick and how would their powers combine to create the ultimate Nazi busting duo?
Well, now that's a fun question. You're right. I'm going to go a little old school and modern. Back in the 1970s, there was a team called the Invaders. It's a Marvel team. I think Roy Thomas wrote it. Basically, it was Captain America, the Submariner, the original Human Torch, Bucky and Toro were a superhero team, and the stories all took place during World War II. It was about their additional adventures in World War II that those characters existed, you know, were created in that era, and they had some adventures, but now we're seeing more adventures where they're a team. And I think if we were having a team up, having him with the Invaders as part of that team would be very cool. Fighting, say, against the Nazis during the Battle of the Bulge and the Longest Day, and then throwing in some of the characters from as their opponents from Marvel, like the Red Skull and Baron von Nemo, Master Man and Warrior Woman, things like that would be an exciting crossover to do. I think it would add to the a comics version of World War II that would be kind of plausible, where you know the good guys have their heroes, but the bad guys have people too. So it's not them getting rolled over easily. It's a real fight to the finish.
All right. And then we always end with this. Please give us your quick 2-sentence elevator pitch for Samson 1 and 2. Go.
So my elevator pitch for Samson is the Nazis during World War II are experimenting with young children, using them as guinea pigs in an effort to create a super soldier. Instead, they create Samson, their greatest enemy. This follows him over 50 years in an epic storyline of how he gets his powers and how he discovers, after the fall of the Berlin Wall and the collapse of the Soviet Union, how his fight is not anywhere near over, as the super soldier knowledge that was used on him is now being used again to create a new generation of Nazi super soldiers, more numerous and more dangerous than whatever he faced in World War II. So, yeah, thank you for having me on. I appreciate your time, and good day.
All right. Great job, Ben. Thank you for participating in our 5 questions with an indie creator segment. And everybody, go check out Samson 1 and 2 on Kickstarter right now. 15 days left to back. And, support cool comic projects like this. All right, everybody. Thank you for checking out the video. Like, subscribe, share the channel, and join us every other Monday for our live streams. Me, Johnny C, and Harry G. We get together, we have a lot of laughs, and we interview creators and talk about process and nostalgia, anything that comes up. So it's a lot of fun. We usually on Monday nights, 9 p.m. to ? So, all right, so check that out. And most importantly, read some comics. All right, everybody, have a great week, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.